Hey guys, Aliasan here, back again with another Kingsglaive related video, and in this video I'm here along with Mr. Neil Newbon. So please introduce
you almost
yourself.
did the same thing, right? Yeah. Hello there. Hi, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Can you give us a little bit of who you are and what you play as a role in Kingsglaive? Just a little bit, save it for the interview for the most part, but yeah.
Sure. My name's Neil Newbon. I am an actor. I'm also a full performance capture artist and a voice artist. In Kingsglaive, I'm very, very lucky to play did all the full performance and combat stunts for Nyx, which was voiced by the amazing Aaron Paul. And I also did the full performance and combat and also voice for Captain Petra, who is the King's Guard as opposed to one of the Glaive. He's the guy who doesn't like immigrants very much. He's a little bit racist. So,
Can you just do like the one line that he says to Nyx in the beginning?
oh sure, okay. This is what 1,000 years. So no, that's not right. It's 100 years, not 1,000 years. This is what 100 years of peace looks like. Made by the wall and the wall alone. Something like that.
That sounded incredible.
It's been a while, man. So sorry if I got that right.
It's fine. It doesn't. I love that part. As it was like a hugely kind of heart-wrenching moment as well. It made me feel like this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, he's an asshole. I mean, it's interesting with everything that's been going on in Britain at the moment. I view myself as European, so I'm not necessarily the happiest bunny on the planet right now about Brexit or about the possibility of Brexit, which hasn't actually started yet. So it's interesting to play essentially somebody who's bigoted and ignorant and racist, as well as somebody who is an immigrant in the same project. So, and obviously when we were doing the scenes, we perform it as full performance. So we play the scenes as they're meant to be played. We're not just doing mime. So it's interesting to get into the skin of both characters from both different sides of view of the war that's going on and the political situation and the immigration issues within Insomnia and all that, and with the King's love for everybody and the local population's fear of newcomers and taking their resources and the war, etc., etc., etc. So it's very pertinent, I think, to say that these themes are playing out globally at the moment. And as somebody who is quite, who prides himself on being very liberal, it was very fascinating to jump into the other's shoes, if it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. This actually was even brought up at the Q&A after the movie for the New York City premiere.
Sure.
Nazu answered a lot of questions, and even someone brought about how some inspirations from real life and modern reality, regarding immigrations and some problems here and there. If you guys want to watch that real quick, I do have a video I think coming up on my channel sooner or later regarding the Q&A. So that will be somewhere probably linked within the cards section. Nonetheless, let's actually get to know a little bit more about Neil rather than all of his roles in Kingsglaive. I want to get to know a little bit more about yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about, well, you already kind of told us about your role and everything like that. So let's move on straight to what you did as maybe before Kingsglaive and past experiences and everything like that.
Well, I'm very grateful to be a working actor. I have done an awful lot of very, very different projects, from theatre, which is where I started, very similar to Liam in respects of I have a theatre background, and went into television and film very quickly. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I was very fortunate to happen to get into motion capture as well. And I happily work in all the mediums still. I still work across the different type of, I guess you could call it, craft techniques of television, film, and theatre. And motion capture, for performance capture specifically, is a wonderful new experience for actors because it gets to pull all the disciplines together: theatre, film, television, and you can have these very introspective moments moments as you do on film, these very still moments. But also you're required to really use your imagination, because the environments are very rarely set out for you apart from very specific things. You have to fill it with your own imagination from the source material given, script, artwork, conversations with directors and the animators as well. So it's fascinating to see that this one particular discipline draws all the other ones into it. So I've been very lucky. I started at the National Youth Theatre with now sadly passed Ed Wilson, who was an incredible human being. And the institution still goes. It's technically a charity because they do rely on people's donations, and it's a wonderful institution. Many of the great British actors of the last 50, 60 years, a lot of them have come from National Youth Theatre, were there as teenagers and were fed a great diet of acting and inspired by the people that ran it. And it still goes today. So I would urge anybody, certainly in Britain, anybody that would like to get into acting, who's under the age of 21, I believe is the limit, and has really no idea of how to go about it apart from applying to drama school. National Youth Theatre is a wonderful institution, and it certainly helped start my career and broaden my horizons to what the craft was. So that's how I started. Yeah, the age of, I think I was 15, and I left National Youth Theatre when I was 19, 20. So I did a couple of plays with them and had a very fantastic time, and was spotted by an agent at one of the performances. So I was very lucky.
What really captivated me about, like, your statement right there was how you started in theater. Because Liam similarly started in theater as well, and I'm wondering, did a lot of the people that worked around you have their startup within theater and everything like that? Is that kind of like the whole stage? Or?
It's very common for actors in Britain because we have such a tradition of theatre here, and theatre is so relevant and so prevalent in the art world in Britain, that it's most usual for a lot of actors to start in theatre, especially if they get drama school and move on to that. Or there is a big trend, however, of a lot of people coming into acting now that don't have really much training. And I have a background in method acting. I've studied lots of different styles. I've worked with many teachers. I have one teacher I still go to, and I still practice using kind of like a gymnasium system where professionals go in for one night a week, and you get to try auditions, you get to try work you're actually on, you get to explore in a safe environment. But there is an interesting trend that a lot of people are coming into acting, not necessarily for the right reasons, I would say. And I've been fortunate that most of the people I've worked with over my career have all been consummate professionals and have been fantastically talented. And I actually find I learn a lot through simply just watching them or watching their performance or talking to them about their own methodology. So I've been very lucky that I've come to this wonderful, wonderful industry on the craft side, and I'm still working. So, yeah, I was very lucky. I got to work with, I should say, by my current teacher is Giles Foreman at the Giles Foreman Centre for Acting in Soho. Mm-hmm. His background is from Soho, from the Drama Centre, as was under Jaap Melgrim and Christopher Fortis, and was the most incredible school. He's brought the teachings from Yat and from Christopher on to his own school, and he still exists, and he has allowed me to facilitate. He's facilitated my training further beyond just simply learning the craft of acting, to actually develop it and be able to mature it a lot. And I owe him a huge thanks that he's a great supporter of mine and a great believer. So yeah, I sort of lost the trail of what I was saying.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I really do appreciate, how all of that kind of, organic, we're talking on edge and everything like that, and even, how you say, like, everything's kind of organic, authentic, like, there's no live cuts and everything like that. It really does kind of showcase in your personality too, because like, even before interviewing, you kept on asking, it's like, I think it would be better if we just did it like in one take, which is actually brave. Like, I was a little bit scared. I'm like, because sometimes I could do that, sometimes I can't. I do have like two sides of that spectrum, so yeah.
Well, it's just talking. My father's actually a sports journalist, and although sports journalism and acting are really quite different things, he did give me one piece of very good advice about interviews, which was about talking to the camera as opposed to the camera being an unseen audience around you, which is very different. But when you're doing interviews, obviously you're just having a conversation with one person. You're not thinking about anything else. So I prefer to do interviews just like this, just a conversation, because I think it's better than trying to deliberately have taglines or buzzwords or whatever to sound.
So we've actually covered a lot of ground regarding, your life, your experience, everything like that. Is there any major, and this should be like real quick, like major works you've done in the past that is like major before Kingsglaive or anything like that, or is it just?
Yeah, I've been working for 15 years.
Oh my.
I think it's 15.
You look great for your age.
I'm not telling you my age, but thank you very much. Bless you for that. I'm 25 or something. Yeah, I've done a lot of I've been involved in a lot of really amazing projects. I've been very blessed to be cast in some projects that have really affected people. I've also been in some projects that have just been great fun. And again, it's the nicest feedback in the world is when somebody stops in the street and says, "I really enjoyed what you did." Or, I wouldn't say actors are really noble creatures. I think we do this pretty much for ourselves. It's playtime, and we get to play and have fun. And, we make a living out of it when we do get to work. When we don't, it's tough and you have to keep your head and you have to survive. But when you get to work, you're actually just fulfilling everything that you love doing. But we do get to be a part of projects that can move people, that do have themes and messages, and sometimes can be incredibly noble things to be a part of, because they really can affect a person's point of view on something. Art is fantastic at that. So it's really lovely to hear people when they come up and say, actually, what really affected me, or really moved me, or I hated your character because they're supposed to hate your character, I guess, or they because that then allows them to root for the good guys or something. So our job is best when people do give us feedback and say, "I really enjoyed it," or it made me think," or "I hated your character, but I loved the project," as they're hopefully supposed to, etc., etc.
I actually wanted to transition a little bit, from your works and everything like that to a little bit more of a casual question. Are you a fan of the Final Fantasy franchise? And if so, what is your kind of favorite game, or what did you start at?
Yeah, Final Fantasy. I am a gamer. I have a lot of work on, which is thank God. So I don't get to play that much. But yeah, Final Fantasy. Gosh, I don't think anybody, and certainly under the age of, certainly in the last few generations, hasn't heard of it. And that in a kind of developed world, I would say, more than anything else, in that kind of context of entertainment. And certainly I came to Final Fantasy VII. So I wasn't even aware of the other games. I met Cloud and just thought it was the most incredible game. It absorbed a lot of my time. And then Final Fantasy VIII, of course, and so on. I was just hooked. I don't actually know a huge amount of the lineage of Final Fantasy until after I finished playing those games. And I actually became curious. And to see the worlds that have been created successively from Sakaguchi's amazing vision, to still see that it's not only is it full of great new ideas and wonderful stories, that people are still so enraptured by it, still so embraced all the worlds that come out, and they're very vocal as well, which is interesting. I find Final Fantasy community very fascinating because they're incredibly vocal, but they're very loyal. So they can be very critical, but at the same time, it comes from a place of love. By and large, people, especially if something isn't quite right for them, they get very, very angry. But at the same time, that it's because they absolutely are completely committed to the worlds and the series that Final Fantasy has created. And for that, it's really an honor to be a part of Final Fantasy Kingsglaive. And it was great to work with so many talented people as well. I mean, I'd love to have a big shout out to Larry Sparks, Rui Kawada, Takeshi Azuro-san, of course, and Dan Inoue, who are incredibly, disgustingly talented and very lovely people. And they gave us an incredibly safe and supportive place to play, and their direction was invaluable. and their trust also was hugely beneficial to us being able to create and know that we can take risks and we can go push ourselves further than we might do in other situations. So I have a huge thanks to them. And the cast were incredible as well, and the various crews that we worked with in Imaginarium, Audio Motion, in Japan itself, Square Enix. They were fantastic, and we just had a lot of fun every day, which is extraordinary to say. And considering how long the shoot was and how many sessions that we did, you never felt like you were going into the start of a day going, oh my god, it's going to be a long day and I'm exhausted. You just wanted to turn up early and get into it and get into the suit and start working. So it was a wonderful experience, and I'm very, very blessed.
So that's cool to hear. I especially liked. Did you know about Nizu working on Final Fantasy VII Advent Children before coming into Kingsglaive by any chance? Or?
Yeah, I did. I was a huge fan of Advent Children. Yeah, massive fan. I remember watching kind of Spirits Within, thinking, not entirely sure.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm the same way.
So I was very curious to see Advent Children, and having played 7, obviously, I was immediately excited by the idea of them making a feature. That especially one that linked into the world that I played, that I'd been part of. So yeah, man, it was amazing. Loved it. And actually, when I heard that Final Fantasy Kingsglaive, he was directing it, it was just it was a no-brainer for me to try and be a part of it.
Yeah, so I don't think I quite caught. Well, what's your favorite Final Fantasy game?
8, I think. I like the realism. I mean, 7 is huge, and 7 is always going to be a special place in my heart. But for me, 8, I like the realism. I liked suddenly how it went a little. I hate using the term dark, but you know what I mean. It was a little more gritty. I like the grittiness as opposed to the sort of the usual JRPG kind of style. I liked suddenly it was more kind of, I don't know, beneath a steel sky kind of look to it. There was something more real about it in that way, and I think that for me as a gamer, I kind of prefer that, I guess. But 7 and 8 equally were fascinating experiences. So.
Yeah,
played the shit out of them. So, yeah. I also really enjoyed 10. Yeah. I'd say I really enjoyed 10 as well. And Blitzball is like one of the all-time best bonus games. I mean, I think I spent like 20 hours on Blitzball alone, so yeah, it was great. Of course, the infamous laughing scene, still to this day, is something I wish I could not remember. But once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. So yeah.
Yeah, unless you regress the memory, which a lot of people I'm sure did. FFA
and now just of course brought it back out for them. So apologies. Forgot the laughing scene. Now has to remember and live through the laughing scene again. So my apologies.
Yeah, I'll live through it. No, that's fine. FFA is actually known as a lot of people's underrated love for Final Fantasy. Liam, obviously, he liked FF7. That was his favorite. That was, I added some comical relief within that, because I'm like, I thought you were special, Liam. Everyone loves 7. Why can't you be different? But thank God I could count on Neil for being out of the box.
Yeah, so I think 8 was the thing. Yeah, 8 was the game.
Yeah. Me personally, I love how you brought up FF10. I love FF10. FF10 was probably one of my childhood, gems and everything. And the one smart point that Liam brought up is that a lot of people's favorite game that is the first game they play properly is usually their favorite game. So I kind of see the light there, because FF10 was my first game that I beat properly and everything like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, no, 10 was amazing. Still is amazing. It's a very playable game. It's on Steam at the moment, I think, as well, where you can play a re-enhanced version of it. So yeah, it's great stuff. The problem is I haven't got enough time anymore. So the oodles of time that I did have as a younger kid is gone. So I don't get to indulge these fantasies again. But that's the wonderful thing about being an actor and being part of, especially being a full performance artist as well, is you get to play in these incredible worlds, and you get to experience everything the world has to offer. I mean, apart from the fact that you get to see the entire story, you get to work within the realms of the people that created the story, and you get to interact with them on a one-to-one level to explore their characters, which of course you make your characters as well. And Aaron Paul did the voice for Nyx. Johan is the face of Nyx, and I got to do the full performance of Nyx. but you still come away with feeling, Nix is my character as much as Aaron's character, because you live that character. You go into every day. We're going to these scenes every day. We're trying to play as authentically and as truthfully their fictional reality, and you come away with a very personal connection to these fictional characters, but these real. I know it sounds like a paradox, but they are real in that way. It's not. I don't think it's nuts to say that. You manifest this world to such a point where you literally live it within the confines of the volume, obviously. But you are, hopefully, that's the aim anyway, to really be there for that moment and to really feel what they feel and do what they do and make the choices and impulses that those experiences give you to tell and honor their story.
So, really quick, can you tell us a little bit about, Nix's character, but also, like, your experience, with the infamous ball suits?
Ball suits is the first I've ever heard them called ball suits. It's going to stick in my head forever. Nix's character, I guess we'll start that way. Nix's character, it's interesting that Takeshi didn't really want... he didn't want to have a sort of cardboard cutout hero. Nix, we talked a lot about how he saw Nix, and obviously Aaron Paul did an amazing job with the voice, but we had to start in the same vein that they wanted Aaron to kind of go in, because obviously I'm performing fully Nix until we get to the hand voice workover that I've done to Aaron. So we kind of went, he's a little Han Solo. He's a little Indiana Jones. He's a little, he's got that sort of playfulness to him. He doesn't take everything quite so seriously. But we worked out that actually that sort of humor or the fun that he has, the laid-back nature of him, actually is actually a protection. It's a defense mechanism. And I realise there's spoilers ahead, so I can't talk too much about what. But I realised that when you tapped into that element, this playfulness that he has, the reason that he keeps his family, his new family, his friends, close, and he will do anything for them, is a strong sense of protection and need to protect those that he cares about. And that really is the heart of his character. And he doesn't really I don't think he seems to care about much more beyond that, to be honest. His role as a glaive, he's respectful to the king. But he does things that are, he pushes the boundaries of institutional leadership. For instance, he rebels against institution. He doesn't like being told what to do, but he accepts it because it's his role and his job. He comes into contact with his captain, and he have a little frictious relationship between the two of them. So from a character point of view, it was really nice to not play somebody who was the chiseled stand-up hero, who's actually a lot more interesting than that, a lot more subtle than you might have wanted, than people may have made him be played. So I'm very used to being in the light pursuits. You are essentially naked. I mean, basically that's kind of the given. You look like you're wearing, because you are wearing a skin-tight hugging suit. For some reason, men always look way worse than women. Women look great, and men look terrible in these things. I don't know why it works like that. I guess the dimensions of a man does not work very well in a lycra suit. So you have to get over that very quickly. You have to get over the vulnerability that gives you, and actually embrace the fact that the suit and the environment and the nature of motion capture gives you this huge playing area and allows your imagination to be limitless insofar as what you see around you. You obviously are dealing with the script, you're dealing with the environment of the story, but you kind of create a lot of that in your mind, which actually, when you embrace it, is very freeing. And because there's cameras all around you, it's anything up to 120, 140 plus cameras, I think, around you everywhere, you do have a little bit more freedom in terms of your playing, where you want to play to. The camera is usually told the camera's going to be here, it's going to be there. Sometimes you use a thing called a virtual camera to actually show you the shots. But you do get a sense of much greater freedom. And also you have that introspective and that intimacy that you can get on film that you don't always get in theatre. So to play it is, if you're not used to it, I think it can be quite intimidating. But I'm being very blessed to work with some amazing studios, amazing actors and amazing directors in games and film before Kingsglaive. And for me, that just made the entire experience very comfortable, knowing that I was working with, yet again, good people. But I knew the technology, and I'd known the the craft of mocap for quite a long time. I actually now teach at the TMA, which is the Mocap Academy. We're based at Audio Motion Studios in Oxford, and we do run every month or two a beginners course for actors, performance, puppeteers, gymnasts, stuntmen, anybody that wants to get involved on the kind of performance side of motion capture. And we do more advanced courses as well. So I've been very lucky to have been asked to be a tutor there as well. And yeah, I have wonderful problems of too much work, and I'm incredibly grateful to everybody that keeps employing me. And the chance to play on so many different projects. And Kingsglaive was just, yeah. I literally jumped in the air when I found out it was Final Fantasy. I was so happy. It was great.
So, okay, so that was a very, very excellent description of, like, Nick's Ulric, as well as, like, a nice experience, description about, like, how it is kind of almost on a day-to-day, but, like, just, like, going into it, and, like, the whole vulnerability thing. I could totally see it. I mean, I wouldn't want to wear this, or maybe I would want to wear the skin-tight balls. So
oh, you would?
I would.
Yeah, the thing is about the suit, it looks terrifying when you first try it on. You get a little addicted to it. I'm not gonna lie to you. You get it's a little fetish. I mean, it's not fetish, but it's, it's getting a little there. Because it gives you, the freedom it offers. You know that you get to play a whole bunch of different characters, creatures, things that you should never necessarily even play as an actor the way that you look like on screen or theatre, on stage. So you get to play characters you may not have ever got to play. And that for an actor is extraordinary, because you really get
a level of imagination.
Yeah, and you need a lot of guts. I think you need a great imagination. You need training and craft, and you also need to not be vague. You have to you need to accept what the character's reality is and who they are, and you really need to completely embrace their life and put yours to the side, no matter what's been going on in your life. I mean, actors, we go through hard times like every other human being. It's a job on one level. All the things that people have with their job sometimes affects actors as well. You have to park all that stuff. It's not even a choice whether you want to or not. You have to. I would say to anybody that wants to get into acting, if you want to get into acting, don't do it. Find something else that makes you more money and it's more fun. If you need to act, then be an actor, and go for it completely 100%, and dedicate your life to the craft for as long as you can. If you're able, because we work, we don't work. Sometimes it's hard. But I think you need to tell stories. You need to be a storyteller, whether you're a director or an artist or a musician or whatever. You have to need to tell stories as opposed to want to tell them. If that makes sense.
No, it completely does. I mean, I mean, from just hearing a lot of people's perspectives on being an actor, it's tough. It's really tough. Like, a lot of people, sometimes they don't even get work, and they're like a little bit struggling for a long period of time. Then when they are working, they're finally, kind of passing by, but then they're not working again. It's a really, really dreadful cycle sometimes.
Yeah, but there's a lot of positivity that can even come from just having challenges. I mean, this is a little off what you're saying, but I work with the charity in South Central LA in Watts and Compton, which is called Inner City Shakespeare, run by Dr. Melanie Andrews, who's amazing. She's an amazing human being. And I've been very lucky that every time I go out to LA, it's usually the same period of time that they're putting on their shows. And I'll send you a link. There's a BBC did an interview with all of us when we were doing our last show. I don't get to stay there. I never get to see the shows, because I'm always there for a limited time. But I do get to be involved with the kids and the young adults and the adults that are getting into it. I want to get into acting. And it's a wonderful resource for people that don't always have a huge amount of support from outside of the community. And certainly, some of the guys and girls I've worked with over the years, the men and women I've worked with over the years in this institution, this great charity, have had more guts and talent than some people I've met professionally. So I'm going to send you the links. I'll put the links for you for people to check out. It's a great idea. It's basically Shakespeare with local people from Watts and Compton playing all the roles, and they perform it as a professional piece in the park, the local park there. Every year they do it every July.
Okay, so thank you for saying all that. I'll definitely link in the description for any of you guys at home watching and everything like that. And if you want to be a part of the loop, but nonetheless, let's move on. So I want to ask this like real quick because like we're still in the section about Kingsglaive and your role in it.
Yeah.
You know, building up to your role as working as the motion capture, or well, full performance of Nick's Ulric. What was it like, and around what time did this all occur? Because I'm trying to get like this kind of mental image of like this timeline of when exactly was the development starting for Kingsglaive, and then obviously the announcement of it was uncovered, which was this
Yeah,
past March.
yeah, Liam and I chatted about this the other day. We had to wait a full year to talk to anybody about it, like longer than a year. I came on a little later than Liam into the performance, so they wanted an actor to play Nix's character with full performance. So they'd already cast, I think, majority of the roles. Certainly, they've scanned most of the roles, and some of the people who were doing the scanning were coming on to do the roles themselves. So I kind of came in on the first day, sort of being handed Nix, not knowing who Nix was, and having to very quickly find his feet. And it was really wonderful to be surrounded by so many talented people I could collaborate with and work with. And Liam, I mean, he and I, man, we just hit it off. I talked to him for like 3 seconds and went, yeah, this guy's great. He's going to be fantastic to work with, and I can already tell that he's going to become a brother. So that's great. So I was very lucky to be surrounded by good actors and good people to be able to allow me to play. But yeah, I came on a little late onto the shoot. It was the first day of shooting when I met everybody. And so we just took the script and flew with it, really. It was very, very easy to get into the world. I think it helped that I was a Final Fantasy fan anyway and sort of understood certain unspoken rules of the universe, I guess, that Final Fantasy has, and certain realities that they always try to anchor, to embed it as very much a Final Fantasy project. I'm very lucky that I got to do a lot of combat stuff as well. I did I can't talk about it, man, because I don't know who's seen this thing or not. So there's one moment where somebody throws up. Let's put it that way. And that was a really fun. No, it wasn't totally improvised, but we really improvised the setup of how I was going to do this thing that happens that I can't talk about. So just watch out for somebody throwing up, and you may have to edit around that, I guess, if that's too much info.
No, I don't think that's too much information. Throwing up, that seems very vague. I don't know. I watched the movie.
I'll talk to you about it. But things like that were really fun because we were given a lot of freedom to play. The only reason I mention it is because we were given a lot of trust and freedom by Larry and Takeshi and Dan and Aki and all the rest of the guys that were involved in the making of their project, that we were allowed a lot of freedom to come up with suggestions. So we were asked, especially if we already, I'm a martial artist and some of the people there are combat trained, we were asked, if we wanted to choreograph moments together, to work out together, which was great because we actually got to work out the narrative that the combat would need or create to further the story. So the fight between two of the characters I was involved with, for instance, became very much about their relationship. And actually you see the fight is sort of a statement of where they are in terms of status with one another, because they spend a lot of time through the film interacting. That's about as vague as I can make it without telling any details, so I'm not going to tell anything. But things like that, we're very grateful as actors to be allowed the chance to be able to give our input into somebody else's vision. It's a really wonderful experience when people like your ideas and they help you realize them.
I mean, the bright side about like the movie, I think by the end of August, around that time, everyone might or might not get the digital version. So I don't know. This interview might come about a couple. I mean, the day we're recording this is like the 21st of August, so we might get this a little bit later on within the week. Who knows? It depends on my.
I'm
editing.
Still not going to talk. I'm just very careful about what I say. I'm not going to spoil.
No, I completely understand. It was really nice how we kind of talked about that and everything. Was there ever a day where there was a huge major problem that kind of hindered you while filming or anything like that? Even minor, major, anything like that?
To be honest with you, man, unless it's like the world suddenly breaks down and you physically can't get to a studio or there's no electricity, I always see problems that occur as creative challenges. I'm very lucky that a lot of the times I've had a problem in my real life, or a problem around, I don't know, something to do that's not to do with the scene I'm shooting. Usually, it's always worked out that that problem, the experience it gives me, somehow usually relates to the character that I'm playing. It's weird. It's happened a lot, and actually, I'm very grateful to creative problems that occur in my life, because 9 times out of 10, there's a way that it relates somehow to the character's experience in that scene, or in another scene later on. You can go, oh, actually, you know what? That's a very similar situation, or you could use your imagination to say that if you extrapolate that, that could be a similar situation to what they're going through. So I'm not going to talk about. I never talk about things that happen behind scenes on problems and things like that, because there's no point. It's us to deal with them. But what I will say is that for an actor, it's you have a wonderful remit to use any problems that you experience in your real life, or on set, or at any point. There usually is some positivity that you can use from that to relate to the character, or another character, or in the future, for instance. Even if it's not, a problem you have in your normal life and it's not on a job, you can almost certainly relate it to another character situation at some point in your career. Because our job is to play humans, or human-like creatures, sentient creatures, and tell their stories. And it's always humanized. So we're always trying to get to the bottom, to get to the root of what it is to be a human being, and what humanity as a whole is. So our problems are universal. I mean, they may not relate to somebody living in a different culture, in a different country, but most of them probably do, actually. They're just maybe not the same context, but the issues that they throw up, the issues of time, mortality, the issues of prejudice, the issues of anger, the issues of rage, the issues of love, the issues of all these things, and so much more, you can even find that in, I don't know, losing your car keys or something like that. You can somehow relate that to a character losing something very important that actually will change his life irreparably if he doesn't find it. I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but these are the tools that I, as an actor, certainly will start looking at. To be able to relate to another person's life, especially if I haven't lived that person's life. Because, Nix and I, or Captain Petra, who I do the voice for and did the full performance for as well, my lives are not similar to really either of those lives. Captain Petra is a bigot. He's a racist. He doesn't like the immigrants coming in. And I'm very lucky to be able to play both sides of that story, and to play the immigrant coming into a place that nobody wants him. I mean, I can't remember if this was captured or if we talked about this before we started the interview, about the Brexit situation that's going on in England, Europe. I think that was the beginning of that's what we talked about at the beginning of the interview. There were a lot of rhetoric about people not being very happy about being in Europe, in Britain. And a lot of that did come into the time of the story and the performances. And so my own personal viewpoint, which is not the same as Petra's, but is similar probably to Nix's, I imagine, of acceptance and openness and just trying to get along with everyone. So to explore the other side of the argument, Petra's point of view, you have to play that. You can't be prejudiced against his point of view when you're playing him. You can only do that outside in your own life, your own political points of view. So it's interesting that you can even relate to somebody who has the complete opposite stance that you do in your life. And you have to honor his truth, even if you don't agree with it, because it's not our place to judge. So it is wonderful that actors get to do all these different types of roles and play in these different environments to experience something that you wouldn't necessarily experience in your own life. Whether it's good or bad is almost beside the point. It's up to the audience to decide who's good and who's bad in a story. It's your point of view, your point simply to play that person's life truthfully. So yeah, it's great, man. I love being an actor. I love it.
I really like how you brought up, the whole point before with the car keys. You could kind of connect it towards acting, and that really does help. Yeah. Really helps make it more organic and authentic, if you will. Because, if you could connect to it yourself, you could really connect to it in general and everything like that. So I really want to...
The main thing is to never play your life in them. Never you have to really be... you can be a vain person in real life, but you shouldn't ever be a vain actor. So you have to leave your stuff by the door the second you go onto set, the second that you step or onto a stage. You can't play out what you would like to happen in a story. You have to accept that whatever happens for them is what happens for them. And so if that means you have to look like a fool, if that means a liberal has to come out with quite a right-wing point of view on immigration, you have to go with it, because that's the point. I had some friends who were in various shows, and one of them played a racist. Now, he's actually married to a British mixed race woman, and they have 2 kids. And he had to play a racist. I mean, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. And he got a lot of flack from people on the street because he was playing a racist. Now, he's not a racist. He's about as far from being a racist as possible. He's a completely open, lovely human being. But we have to set aside ourselves when we play these roles. You have to go with them, regardless of whether or not you agree with them. You can't judge them for it. Hopefully that means that you guys, the audience, when you see the project, you get to judge, you get to experience completely what our story is attempting to make, and that's where the judgment comes from. You know? So having somebody come up to you and say, "I hated that character, I hated you, you're an evil bastard," is actually a compliment if you're playing somebody who's evil. You know.
So I think we're because this interview's been going for a good amount of time.
Parents by nature, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's completely fine. Actually, a lot of people I appreciate that more because they get to feel more about, like, you know, your character and who you really are as an actor. And I feel like I generally learn more about you and everything like that, and what kind of person you are. And it's actually, no, it's really good because, like, you know, I could see, like, you're one of those people that really take their, like, you know, real life into consideration and then, you know, kind of put into their character, which is actually smart. I kind of do that, you know, like, I'm not really an actor or anything, I'm far beyond it, but, like, you know, I really use that kind of mentality when I'm trying to do something of, like, a role or something like that. And I can definitely see it.
Empathy is the greatest gift that humans have, is empathy. To be able to, you know, we even amorphosize animals. You know, we even are empathetic to things that aren't even our species, let alone our race, whatever, you know. The term is to describe somebody who's not from where you're from. I mean, you know, the great thing about being an actor is that we need to be interested in other people. We need to be interested in other lives. We have to be observant. We have to be open towards people's points of view. So these kind of stories, I mean, you know, people talk about, oh, you're in an animated film, oh, that's interesting. Well, what they really don't understand is that any kind of form of art, artistic endeavor, at its root is about humanity. I mean, Kingsglaive is a fantastic film. It's a great spectacle, it's action-packed, but it's also got a lot of heart. And I think that kind of sums up the Final Fantasy franchise for me, was that you always felt a deep connection to these characters. You always cared about their relationships between each other, and you always felt genuinely that you come away kind of making new pals in a way in your imagination. So yeah, for me to be part of Kingsglaive, to sum up this whole interview, has been a real honor and a blessing, and I've made good friends that are still friends, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what everybody else contributed to make this film look like and feel like.
So ending the part, you know, regarding Kingsglaive, can you just tell me, you know, real quick, what are your plans for the future, you know, beyond Kingsglaive, if any?
Yeah, I'm shooting in autumn a project I'm afraid I can't talk about, which is going to be a very big game, which I'm very excited to be doing full performance. So I'm playing several characters, doing the voice and full performance as well. I'm just finished doing another big game, which is coming out. You see, the problem with working in games, or films, you can never talk about it until they tell you can talk about it. So timing-wise for your interview, I'm sorry, I can't actually reveal these things. I just finished doing a really fun Nat Geo TV movie called Gaddafi's American Prisoner, which is about Matthew Van Dyke, which I got to play Matthew Van Dyke, which is really great. On my Twitter, actually, I did post a link to my new showreel, which has got some of the new shows in there. So if people do want to find out more, it's probably easier to watch it than to hear me talk at them about it. I've also got a big film in India, which I can't tell you any more about. And I'm playing a lead. I don't see him as a villain at all, but I'm playing the lead villain in that. But I will not be able to tell you anything else about that because nobody knows about it. So, and that's the interesting thing about Kingsglaive. Nobody knew about it. I'm amazed that we made it to March with nobody finding out. Apart from you, apparently. I heard you were the one that screwed it.
Well, I mean, There is a video that
you almost ruined the party for everybody. So
I didn't want to steal anyone's thunder, you know. People, and when I can't, because I there was like, you know, certain things, you know, like hints that were like, you know, like, you know, put out there, and a lot of people didn't believe them. They said, why would
you did, and you almost ruined it for everybody, man.
Oh
You
my!
almost ruined it for everybody, but we didn't. It's great, so thank you.
I try, man. Thank God, you know, they thought I was crazy, man. They thought I was crazy. So, you know, moving beyond that, how would you rate your experience at Kingsglaive, you know, over there, you know, from a 1 through 10? This is something I told Liam as well.
Oh man, this question, it's one of those listen, I think all the experiences are subjective. I loved every second. So I was like 10 the whole way through it. I had a really great time. I met some fantastic people. I got to work with some friends who also came on to the mocap shoots. I met, you know, we worked with Keziah Burrows, who's amazing, Amanda Puri, who's amazing, Will Bowden was on it, myself, Liam, I met there, Adrian Bouchot, I met there. We had the most, I mean, there's more as well, I'm sorry if I'm not naming it. There was an incredible cast, and it was a real ensemble as well. We had a huge amount of fun shooting this. And every day was playtime. So for me, it was like a 10 the whole way through, I guess. There was no bad day. I didn't have a bad day on it. I just enjoyed it. And I was very lucky to be surrounded by really good people as well. There are many other actors that were involved. I'm sorry I'm not naming them. This will go on quite some time if I do. So, yeah, it was a fantastic cast.
Yeah, and absolutely. As you know, I interviewed Liam, I interviewed you, and maybe sometime in the future I could kind of reach out and maybe connect with more, you know, actors on Kingsglaive, and you know, maybe I could get their perspective on it too, and I could probably put in a nice like little playlist or something like that. You know, it's nice to see everyone's experience at Kingsglaive. I mean, right now, everyone looks like a 10 out of 10 for the experience, so that's actually really nice to hear and everything like that.
It's weird. It's very difficult. You don't need to quantify enjoyment. That's the good thing about having fun. It doesn't need quantification. It was great. Do you know what I mean? I would drop the 1 to 10 system. I really would, and just ask people if it was fun or not, because it's almost impossible to really. I prove me wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's impossible to do a graph of enjoyment. So just it was amazing and it was fun, and I got to work with new friends and old friends, and we got to do stunts and combat. We got to have some really fantastic scene work, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Drop the scale system.
no scale system. 1 through 10.
No more Venn diagrams. No more pie charts. Just ask the. Was it good? Yeah.
Was it good? Was it bad? Was it this? Now that could connect to the 1 to 10 system. A good could be a 7.
Good, I just think it's a lot of effort. You're better off using your time with more fun. You know, unless you really enjoy graphs, in which case, great.
I mean, Liam did enjoy his time, you know, studying the STEM field and with math. You know, he might enjoy
he's an actor. He's also one of those rare actors. He's also a mathematician. They're very rare.
Yeah.
Most actors can't add up for. I mean, I can't. I'm used to the numbers. So most actors. So he's quite rare. But he's good.
Yeah. So, I guess there you have it, folks. If you enjoyed this interview, please drop a like. Definitely leave a comment. If you have any comments or any questions for this awesome actor right here, please, you know, follow his Twitter handle, tweet at him. He's a very nice man, and everything like that.
I have to say that I'm staring right at you, but thank you, bless you.
And if there's any other links that, you know, I'll probably drop in the description below regarding, you know, anything he wants to give, it'll be in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. Any last words, Neil?
I just want to say thank you very much to the fans, and thank you if you have got to the 48-minute point or 50-minute point for staying with us and listening to everything that I had to say. We really appreciate your support. We really like having good feedback from people. Constructive criticism is also good. And it's just really nice to see, it's just wonderful to see so many people still so enthused with this franchise. And we really hope that we do you right by the story that we've tried to tell with Takeshi and Dan and Larry. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Peace out.
So, you might be listening to other people's interviews about this Kingsglaive business, but if you don't want to be jumping around, subscribe to his channel.
this time.